Bible Stories with Lumina, the 3 Visitors and a Great Promise. Hi there, I'm Lumina, your guide through the most amazing stories ever told. Today, we're visiting a man named Abraham. It was a very hot day, and Abraham was sitting in the shade of his tent by the great trees of Mamre. He was resting when suddenly he looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. Even though he was old, Abraham didn't just wave, he jumped up and ran to meet them. Abraham bowed low to the ground. He didn't know it yet, but these weren't just ordinary travelers. One of them was the Lord himself. Abraham said, "My Lord, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and all of you can wash your feet and rest under this tree." He wanted them to feel right at home in the middle of the desert. The visitors agreed to stay. Abraham rushed into the tent to find his wife Sarah. "Quick," he whispered. "Get 3 seahs of the finest flour, knead it, and bake some bread." Abraham was so excited to show hospitality. He then ran to his herd and picked out a choice, tender calf for a servant to prepare. He wanted to give his guests the very best meal possible. When the food was ready, Abraham brought out the bread, the meat, and some milk and curds. He set the feast before the 3 visitors under the shade of the tree. While they ate, Abraham stood nearby, ready to help with anything they might need. It was a peaceful afternoon, but the visitors had a very important message that would change Abraham's life forever. As they ate, the Lord asked, "Where is your wife Sarah?" Abraham pointed toward the tent and said, "There, in the tent." Then the Lord said something incredible. "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Sarah was listening from just inside the tent door, and she couldn't believe her ears because she and Abraham were both very, very old. Sarah thought about how old she was and laughed quietly to herself. She whispered, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" But the Lord knew exactly what she was thinking. He asked Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Sarah was afraid, so she said, "I did not laugh." But the Lord gently replied, "Yes, you did laugh." When the men got up to leave, they looked out toward the city of Sodom. Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. The Lord decided to share his plan with Abraham because he knew Abraham would lead his children in the way of the Lord. The Lord explained that the people in Sodom and Gomorrah were doing very bad things, and he was going to see if their sin was as great as he had heard. Abraham was worried because his nephew Lot lived in that city. He stepped forward and asked the Lord, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you not spare the place for their sake?" The Lord listened patiently and answered, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham kept talking to God, showing how much he cared. He asked, "What if there are only 45? What about 30 or 20? Each time, God showed mercy. Finally, Abraham said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there?" The Lord replied, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." God showed that he is both just and very merciful. Isn't that an amazing story? Sarah learned that nothing is too hard for God, and Abraham learned that we can always talk to God about our worries. We can trust that God keeps his promises, even when they seem impossible. Remember, you can always pray for others, just like Abraham did. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you in the next chapter of the Bible.